Hi guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to this video tutorial on creating an image gallery in ASP.NET Core 2.1. In the last video tutorial, we finished creating half of image slider code, and in this video tutorial, we will finish coding the image slider. Now, for the image slider, before I go ahead and start coding, I will like to tell you that we are going to make use of an API called as swiper.js. Yes, we will use this API swiper.js in order to create our image slider. It's a very beautifully coded JavaScript library with lots of effects that we can use to create different kind of image sliders or image galleries. It's completely open source, so you don't have to pay for it. And you can also look at the demos. I will put the link in the video description to download the necessary files from Swiper, but have a look at the demos as well. Different demos for sliders, different kinds of sliders that you can create and you can use it in your project. You can also use the traditional method of creating sliders, that is from the data that you receive from your database. You can go ahead and write some jQuery code to create an image slider. But I will recommend you to use an API like this, which is already written and which comes with lots of features. You can create different kind of slides by just modifying few lines of code in the API. So we will make use of this. In this tutorial though, I will be creating the basic slider using Swiper's API, the navigation one. But you can choose any one you like and you can create it. So now let's go ahead and start coding our method, because now we want to load our slider from the gallery ID that we received. So let's write that method. Function to create image slider, and that function we will be using Ajax in this function so that the slider is loaded without the page refresh. Okay, so let's do that. Function load slider. And when do you want to call this method? Every time when the selected option is changed. So let's go to our index.html and add an onChange event to the select option here, select element, and then I'm going to add an onChange event. I'm going to call the load slider method and pass the value of the selected option to this method. Okay, now let's code this method. So we are going to write few lines of Ajax over here. So we're going to use the Ajax function. So we want to specify the type, which is get, and the URL, which is going to be our API / gallery / since we are going to call the controller method, which is going to get the image gallery with its ID, we have to specify the ID. So in that case, we will concatenate the ID, which is the value which is going to be passed to the parameter of our load slider method. So let's concatenate that there. And then what we want to do is specify the data type. The data type will be JSON. And when the request is a success, we want to run a function. And in the function, the data that we received, we want to make use of that data. Now, before I code this method further, I wanted to show you something. So let me just alert the data that was received from our API call, which is basically the image gallery with that specific ID. I'm just going to alert that. Okay, let me just go ahead and run this code. Now look at this. When I select the option, it should get me the ID with gallery 11 should be alerted. So let's look at this. Now see here, what you get is an object array. That's because when the data that is being sent, it is one package, it's a collection. We need to break it down. So our response is one result. It's not chunks of results that we are receiving, like, because we are going to receive multiple images in that information about multiple images in that result. But when the data is being sent to the browser or to the client, it is being sent as one package. So we want to now make sure that we break that package down into key value pairs so that we can use it in our code. And to do that, in jQuery we have a method called as each. We can run the each method and we can then make use of the value. So first we need to specify in the each, the first parameter is what is the object, that's the data object there, which is a collection of all images. And then when we receive, we pass the data, then we run a callback function, and in the callback function we will specify two parameters, the key and the value. And now what is going to happen for each object, it's going to store the result as key value pair. So let me just alert the value now and show you something. So let's look at this. I'm still receiving an object, and to fix this, all I have to do, since I have three objects, three images, it will alert me 3 times. Now what I have to do here is, all I want to do is value dot gallery underscore ID. Now let's alert this. Refresh. Now let's select and alert. See that? See the ID. I have three images with ID, gallery ID 11, so it will be alerted 3 times. And if you go to the inspect tab and you go to your network and then you call this method, refresh this, and then you look at your gallery object. Now when I call this gallery ID, all the images related to gallery 11 will be displayed. So now look at this. So the key was, now it ran a loop on our object that was received, and then it separated all the object as key value pair, basically alerted the value for that particular property. So if I had to change this to gallery underscore title, let's do that here. So if I change this to gallery underscore title, save this, I should get the value of gallery underscore title for all these three objects. So let's refresh this, select the 11, see image gallery, image gallery, image gallery. So now what we are going to do is, now these key value pairs, we are going to send it to the API, that is Swiper, and create an image gallery. So let's do that. So to use Swiper's API, we need to reference few files, and we look at the reference links from Swiper. If you just click on the get started option, you can also install the package using the package manager like npm, but for now we don't have it available under libmin. So I'm just going to reference the CD and links for the CSS and JavaScript libraries. So let's do that. Just copy the CSS link and go to your shared layout file and paste it under CSS. And we have to make sure that we change the version of the CSS file to the actual Swiper version, which is 4.4.5. Also, we will reference the JavaScript, and I'm using the minified version of the files. So I'm going to add it under my JavaScript just before my custom JS. That should be it. And now we can use Swiper in our project. So now we have a layout file set up. So let's go to our index.html and start coding our Bootstrap code. We will create the code necessary for loading our Swiper API slider. So let's do that. So we have added a row just below the row that was existing, which just loaded our drop down option. And then within this new row we have created two classes. One class with the class name of swiper-container. That's how we will name the container class that will hold our swiper slider, because that's the recommendation by Swiper. If you go to Swiper demos, if you click on Swiper demos and then you look at the source code for each of the sliders, they have clearly mentioned how you can create a slider and what class name you should use when creating the slider containers. So it's not something that I created. I'm just following the API's code that's needed to create the slider. So within the swiper container, we need to create a class called as swiper-wrapper, which will hold all the slides in this particular div. Since our slides are going to be created dynamically using jQuery, we are not going to add the code here, but we are going to write the code here in our load slider method to dynamically create our slides. So let's do that. Get rid of this alert method, and just before looping in and creating each slides dynamically, we want to make sure that if there are any slides existing in the wrapper, first we get rid of them. So let's add the code here. So let's copy this class name and use jQuery .html and then empty the class before we empty the div before we add new slides. Now let's add the code to create our slider divs dynamically. So let's do that. So the code to add slides dynamically into our swiper.wrapper div is completed. So we use some jQuery and we are appending our slides, and then for the source we are adding the value dot image underscore path of the image. Now the next thing that we want to do is initialize swiper, and to initialize swiper for our pagination slider, as I told you, the code is provided by sliders, so we can just copy the code from their GitHub repository. So let's do that. So to initialize swiper, we can just copy this code here and then we can paste it just after our jQuery each method. After the images have been loaded in the div, then we will initialize our swiper. So the next thing that we want to do is add our pagination and previous and next buttons as shown in the demo, and we can add it here just under our swiper-wrapper div, and that should be it. Now we can just load our project and test our image slider. So I don't have any IDs yet because I deleted all my test IDs. And now let's go ahead and create some galleries. So I've created two galleries and now we will load them using Swiper. So we should have two options here to load two galleries. So let's load the first gallery by clicking on it. And as you see, Swiper has loaded the gallery for our car image. And at the bottom, you can see the image caption. You can use CSS styles to style your slider, but as that is not part of this video tutorial series, I'm not going to teach you CSS. So let's load the next slider. When we switch it to the next slider image loads. So that works as well. So that should be it for this video tutorial. In the next video tutorial, we will learn how we can delete the gallery from our database. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.